Hello and welcome to the garage. Today we are rotating tires. My wife's Model S needs the tires rotated and we're going to do that today. Now her car has what's called square tires, which means that all four tires are the exact same dimensions. That gives us the ability to rotate the tires. Some vehicles, the tires in the rear are wider than in front, which means we cannot rotate the tires. We are going to need one additional thing in addition to the floor jack, which I'll show you here in a minute. This is called a lifting puck. This is made from hard rubber. The little knob on top allows it to insert up in one of four locations up underneath the car. You only want to lift a Tesla and many cars in designated lifting locations. The chassis of the Tesla is so rigid that I can install one puck and lift it up in one of the corners and the whole side of the car will come off the ground. However, to be safe, I'm going to use a second puck located on the same side but in the opposite corner, and I'm going to lift the car from that way, and that will allow me to lift one half of the car with two jacks just for safety purposes. Now, of course, you've seen me with my changing out my spare tires. A couple things you're going to need. First item is a breaker bar. This is 2 feet of mighty 1/2-inch wrench. It's called a breaker bar, and it's a 1/2-inch socket, and it gives us huge amounts of leverage to undo the lug nuts. Remember, lug nuts on a Tesla and many cars are set to 129 foot-pounds. That's quite a bit compared to some vehicles. However, this is a 21 millimeter socket. It will go onto the lug nut, and I stick it onto the breaker bar, and it gives me a huge amount of leverage to break those nuts loose. And I'll show you how to use the breaker bar. Now, in putting the lug nuts back on, we're going to need this device here. This device is called a torque wrench. This is an 18-inch torque wrench. It also has a 1/2-inch drive where I take the socket here that hooks up to the lug nuts, and I'll stick it here, and I will then take this and I will tighten up the lug nuts, and I set the torque for 129 foot-pounds. This is the recommended torque for each one of the lug nuts. And of course, we'll do it across from each other, and I'll show you how I do it that way. So these are the tools we will need minimum. I'm going to use my electric drill hooked to the same 21 millimeter socket to spin the nuts on and off, which saves time in rotating it around and around with a breaker bar or the lug wrench or some other kind of wrench. It makes taking tires off and putting them back on easier. So we'll be using the drill here once I get set up on the car. So before I rotate the tires, I'm going to jack up the front of her car. One jack on each side just behind the front wheels at the jack points using these pucks. Now, what I do that for is I check normally the steering, make sure the wheel bearings are good and all that stuff is working correctly. Since I'm going to be jacking up the car anyway, I usually do that just as a safety check on the car. So we'll do that first, and then we'll get to rotating the tires. Sit. 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 You almost got it. Okay, now you guys stay while I do this, okay? Just give me a minute. I'll be right with you, okay? Hold on. We're in my wife's Model S here now, and the first thing we want to do, of course, is we want to defeat the automatic suspension. The allows us here jack mode, which levels the car, and we need to actually turn that off, because if I try to jack the car, the wheel will go down further and further, and I'll never get it off the ground. So first thing I do is I hit the brake, and we're running, and as you can see, jack mode shows up. I go to jack mode, and what this does is this keeps that suspension from moving until I restart the car again. So I'm good to go now. So let's go outside and place the jack and jack it up. So here we are. We are going to jack this up. I'm going to take the two front wheels off the ground. I'm going to check them, make sure the wheel bearings are good, the steering gear is good, and then I'm going to lower the opposite side, and then we're going to jack this side, and we're going to rotate the wheels from the front to the back and the back to the front. The car's going to want to move a little. So if I chock it, it keeps that from happening. So let me get to that. I just shove them up here under the front wheels. I should say the back wheels. And that'll keep the car from rolling forward or back. Now the next thing I want to do is locate the lifting hole. Now there's 4 places underneath the car to lift. The hole is located right here. So I'm going to take my lifting puck located in the hole. I'm going to take my floor jack, center it up, tighten it up, do a little positive pressure on it. Okay, so let's run over to the other side and we'll do that. I've got this floor jack, and we will locate the lifting hole here on the port side. That would be the left side, like that. Stick the jack here. This jack is not a low profile jack, but any port in the storm. There we go. All right, now before I actually lift the car completely off the ground, we're going to go ahead and loosen that side, because I'm going to do those wheels first, and I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So let's lift this side up now, but I'm going to leave the other side on. Okay, this side's off the ground. Now we're going to go set up on the other side and do that side and pull the wheel off. The wheel on the other side is off the ground. This one is jacked up just ever so slightly, but it's still on the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the lug nuts off here, and I will then jack it up the rest of the way. And my goal is to check the front end, make sure the wheel bearings and everything are set correctly. So let's get this thing done. And I'll go ahead and crack these guys. If you try to do this in the air, the wheel just spins. So if I can do this on the ground, it makes it a little easier. Some of them are on there good. All right. Okay, you don't want to take them too far off. You just want to loosen them up. So now I'm going to go ahead and raise this wheel off the ground. The other one is already off the ground, and we are in jack mode. And my chocks are in the back. Okay, I've got my trusty drill gun. We'll go ahead and spin these off now. Put all these in the carrier here. Go ahead and get the 21 millimeter off of the breaker bar. It's my regular old DeWalt. We'll run this backwards. And I'll take off each lug nut. Okay, the wheel is loose. We're going to go ahead and take it off now. I'll do a little inspection here. I'm going to roll this wheel. Make sure you don't set it on the front. Depending on your wheel, you may end up with trouble. Do an inspection here. Looks like the brake is in good shape. My wife tends to use what are called creep, which is like a fossil fuel car, which means you got to use the brakes more. And I can tell there's a little bit of brake usage. If you use one pedal driving where the car stops you, You don't hardly ever use the brakes. Now these particular brakes are designed such that they don't rub on the rotor. They're actually slightly off, which gives you less friction, or in fact no friction. The only friction you'll have is of the bearing. So this looks good. Sure I don't feel any kind of slop, and the tie rods and everything for the steering aren't sloppy, so we're good to go. So now that I have verified that there's no slop in the wheel, the brakes are fine, it rotates, I'm not hearing any joint noise, it only has 13,000 miles, I think we're good to go. I'll go ahead and lower the other side now and take that jack around, and let's put it in the back here on the right side. We'll jack it up and we'll get these tires rotated. Okay, we're in the jack hole, puck's in. Okay, we are off the ground here in the back. Let's spin this tire off. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and put this on now. We've already checked what we could. Come on. There we go. Use our drill gun again. Take it easy. Now we're going to go ahead and slightly let it down. I will take the torque wrench now, and we'll go ahead and torque these guys up to 129 foot-pounds. With the torque wrench, you always want to leave it unloaded. What does that mean? That means it's not torqued up to its torque, because it stretches a long tensile piece of metal inside, and you don't want to leave it that way. It'll end up stretching and your thing will become uncalibrated. Okay, it's 129 foot-pounds. I'll lock it here with this end piece, and I'm good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the front left. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and lower the front right slightly. Just enough on the ground it won't spin. And so let's see if we can do this. Try not to hit the fender. The click means that we're at the proper torque. Okay, and I go back across the wheel, and then I go around the wheel. Okay, front right wheel is on and torqued. We'll go ahead and take the plastic dress nuts, put them on over. Okay, we are good to go. Let's go do the back one. We'll torque those up now. So it's just like that. Right side is done. I'll go ahead and lower it, move the jacks around, we'll jack it up, and we'll do the other side the exact same. Well, I've crawled around on the floor enough. I am absolutely filthy. I've got to go and get a good cleaning here. And no, you can't clean my hands. You better go lay down, okay? Go on, Luna. Good girl. Well, even though Luna wanted to clean my hands, I'm pretty sure this won't come off very easy. The job of rotating the tires is not a difficult one. You do have to have a certain amount of tools handy and some know-how. Certainly if you're trying to do it yourself and this is a DIY project for you, I would suggest you get the help of a mechanic that can actually show you some tricks and tips of how to actually do the tire rotation yourself. I find it that I use my jacks and torque wrenches and things for my autocross tires all the time. It's coming up an autocross season here starting in March, so I'll be changing out the tires on the Model 3 quite a few times during the year. I usually don't leave my 200 rated rubber on the cars for long. Anyway, I've done it enough times that it's really not so difficult. Some of the tools that I do recommend that if you do decide to rotate your tires yourself, of course, you need a good breaker bar. My buddy Richard uses a impact driver to remove the tires, and he actually has an attachment for his impact driver that is actually a torque wrench that you can actually torque it without actually having a torque wrench. I prefer this way. I have more control over the amount of torque and what I'm doing actually with the wheel. So this is a 24-inch breaker bar, 1/2 inch on the end. This is an 18-inch torque wrench. The socket is a 21 millimeter socket. I bought this off Amazon. It has a plastic liner, and this is really important because in a wheel that is polished or painted, you don't want to scrape up the inside of the hole. So you can get this socket off of Amazon. It's made by a company called Titan. It's 21 millimeters, 1/2 inch drive. This I also got off Amazon. There's a bunch of different types of torque wrenches. This particular one is a Tekton, Tekton. It was recommended, and it's a very fine piece of equipment. Remember though that the lock here at the base, I'll unscrew it and then I'll unload it. You don't want to leave your torque wrench loaded up to 130 pounds. It stretches the calibration inside. Usually leave it about 10 or so and then tighten it back up. There's even a little sticker that says what you should be doing. If you're going to buy a torque wrench and you're not a big guy and maybe you're a small person, you can get a 24-inch torque wrench. That'll give you more torque. And you want to see if you can maybe even get a small extension, 1/2 inch extension. Because it does come close. I've got big old mitts And when I go to torque the thing, I feel my knuckles rub on the fender. So if I was out maybe an inch or two, it might be a good improvement. And I think I'm going to probably order an extension just for that. Anyway, torque wrenches are important, 129 pounds on the Tesla. I use my DeWalt regular everyday drill. I have in the end of it here a 1/4 inch on one side and a 1/2 inch drive that fits the socket, and allows me to easily spin on and spin off the lug nuts. That works out really well. So that's what it takes to actually rotate your tires. If you liked what you saw today, I would certainly appreciate it if you could click the like button. Also, if you don't want to miss any of the upcoming episodes, I've got a maintenance episode coming up next. Go ahead and click that subscribe, and don't forget to click the little bell icon. That'll alert you that a new video is posted. Also, if you'd like to buy yourself a Tesla, the referral link shown here at the bottom of the screen gives you 1,000 or 1,500 free supercharger miles. Simply click that link. It takes you to the website. You can place your order there. Thank you very much for watching. I'll look for you again, and take care.